Welcome everyone. My name is Sophie Poost. I am the program coordinator for the Summer Internship Program. I'm excited to share some space with you all today to discuss the Summer Internship Program for 2022, and then to bring our panel of alumni on to speak a little bit about their experiences. So I want to get started now. There goes. Just really quick, some housekeeping. We are recording this session. If you need to dip out early or want to go back and rewatch it, you are free to do so. We will be sharing that next week. Our closed captions are available on the screen as well as through transcript at the button at the bottom, and the ASL interpreter will remain on screen through the session. If at some point you cannot find the ASL interpreter, please feel free to let me know and I will make sure that we adjust. Lastly, while I will be going through a few details at the beginning here, please hold your questions and answers until after we've gotten through all the details. You can feel free to put them in the chat and or the question and answer box, and we'll get to those when it comes time. There'll be plenty of time for questions and answers. I do see that there's a question in the chat about emailing the presentation. We will make the presentation available afterwards as well. So very quickly, our overview for today is we will discuss the Summer Internship Program, a little bit about what it all entails, what you will be doing and participating in, the application, as well as the timeline for the application. And lastly, we will have our panel Q&A with our alumni. I will have a few questions prepared, and then I will share any additional questions that come up in the chat or in the Q&A box. Here we go. So the Summer Internship Program for 2022 is going to be a little bit different this year than any other year because we will be offering a hybrid program, which means that for the time that the interns are participating in the program, some of the interns will be participating remotely from their homes and some will be in person in DC. I do want to make sure that it is clear that while we do not know the exact numbers, we have an understanding that there will be less remote interns and more in-person interns. So if that is something that is playing out in your decision-making process, please keep in mind that there will be more in-person interns. And so while we do not know how competitive that decision will be, there will be some competitiveness insofar as there will be less remote spots. The program lasts 10 weeks. The first week is an orientation week. And during that week, any interns who are joining us remotely have the option to come in person. So if they want to just come for the first week to kind of meet everyone, get a sense of what's going on in DC, they are free to do so. If that is also a barrier to your participation, we will be doing a hybrid orientation, so you can do it from home. The general schedule for the 9 weeks of your internship will be 4 days of working full-time, which is around 32 hours a week. And then the last day will be a day where we will come together in our certificate program, which we'll talk more about shortly. The internship program, while previously was a little bit more policy-driven, has been expanded to include placements in federal agencies, nonprofits, and for-profit companies. So, for example, if you're interested in congressional placement, because AAPD is a nonpartisan organization, we work with congressional offices from both the Democratic and Republican parties, as well as third parties as well. And so you might be placed in someone like Representative Kathy McMorris Rogers' office, a Republican, or you might be placed in a Democrat office like Senator John Ossoff. Our federal agencies, we partner with disability-specific offices like the National Council on Disability, but we also partner with non-disability-specific offices like the Housing and Urban Development. We work with nonprofits like the American Association for the Advancement of Science, Autistic Women and Non-Binary Network, the Center for American Progress, and in 2022, we are working on getting a placement at the National Public Radio if the right intern comes along. Private and for-profit companies would be like American Airlines, Anthem Incorporated, T-Mobile, some larger scale companies if you're interested in that kind of thing. Question in the chat says, can you pick which you want to join, Republican or Democrat? We are open to hearing your preferences, and there will be a document once you're accepted into the program asking for your preferences, but we cannot guarantee that you'll be put in the office of the that you prefer to be in, just because it's based on availability and the relationship of the supervisor and the intern. If they both feel like it's going to be a good placement for them, we can't guarantee that it will be with the party that you want, though. The other part of the summer internship program, which I've alluded to, is the Disability Advocacy Certificate Program. This takes place on Fridays, usually in the afternoon, and it is a series of classes with speakers usually, but sometimes it's just a discussion where we learn about advocacy using storytelling. So how we can use what we know and our experiences as people with disabilities to work on the issues that we care about that affect people with disabilities. The classes focus on advocacy both on a local level in your city versus state or national level. We cover how to do advocacy in many different forms, and we cover the issues that are pressing in the disability community. We cover several assignments, such as we do preparing for meeting with your elected officials by scheduling meetings, creating materials like a policy memo, and then after you complete it, writing a blog post about your experience meeting with an elected official. We also do group projects, such as our advocacy plans, which is our final project. You work with other interns to come up with an advocacy plan, and then you present it to our staff, our board members, our partners, our sponsors, and your classmates. Our assignments, if you'd like to see an example of them or videos of the final presentations, can be found on our website, and I will drop that in the chat, and we'll also share that later on. In addition to both of those key parts of our internship program, we also offer one-on-one mentorship with community leaders. These are usually individuals who have shared values and professional interests to each of the individual interns. And in as many cases we can, we try to also pair them with individuals who have shared identities if that is something that the intern is interested in. So if you're interested in getting mentored by a person with a disability, we work really hard to try and find someone that matches that interest. We also have community building opportunities. We do weekly virtual events for our remote and our in-person interns to interact and engage and have further conversations outside of the certificate program, as well as networking opportunities. So the picture on the screen, and I apologize, I just realized I have not been doing well at describing photos. The photo on the screen is one of our mentors and one of our interns at a networking event. I want to get into the internship application components. We're going to go through these really quickly, and then if there are additional questions, we will address those later on. So the application is 6 parts. There's the general information, your resume, internship placement preferences, 3 essay questions, references, and demographics, which is an optional section. For the first section, general information, that is mostly contact information, how you heard about the program, any questions or thoughts related to AAPD, as well as eligibility. I want to make sure it's very clear that this is an internship program for people who identify as having a disability. Whether or not you are prideful of that is a separate question, but you must have a disability. We are not currently looking for interns who may be related to someone with a disability or have a passion in disability. Our priority is individuals who identify as having a disability. That can be physical, that can be psychological, intellectual, it could be a chronic illness, it could be something like long COVID or a mental health related disability like anxiety or depression. It could be neurodivergence. There's a whole host of disabilities, and if you identify as having one, then this is the right program for you. The other stipulation is you must be a current student of a undergraduate, graduate, associate's degree, in apprenticeship, or a similar program, transition program, or a recent graduate being defined as being within the last 5 years. If you're between programs, as long as you are a recent graduate, then you are good to go. Lastly, your resume. It is really important for us to be able to look at your resume and get a better understanding of your whole self, of who you are and your experiences and what led you here. Other things that are important to include are transferable skills, and we want to see that you have demonstrated initiative. And so far as we want to know that you are interested in pursuing a career in certain ways, or have gotten involved in volunteering, part-time jobs, anything and everything. We want to know that about you so that we can have a full understanding of you just by looking at your application. The next section is internship preferences. So this is where you'll tell us if you want to participate in person or remote, or if you're flexible to either option. This will also be where you clarify if you would like a congressional placement. So if you want to work on the Hill, if you want to work in a federal agency, a nonprofit, or for-profit. There are also 3 essays. We want to make sure that when you're answering these essays, you're sharing details and specifics. The more information we have to go off of, the easier it is to understand who you are as an individual. Our other priority is making sure that you answer the questions fully. So while it may seem like one question, for example, what is your proudest achievement so far? It's multiple layers, because we're asking you to include why it is your proudest achievement and any obstacles you had to address. So make sure that you address all the parts of the questions in your essays. And we're looking at these to help us understand you as a leader, as someone who's thinking about your disability and the disability community, and just generally trying to get a full picture of you. Lastly, we are looking for your references. We are looking for 1 professional reference at least. So that could be an old boss, a professor, someone who oversaw you at your volunteer position or an internship. And then the second one could also be one of those. It could be a professional, or it can be a personal reference, such as a family friend, your camp counselor when you all through high school, something like that. We are only asking for the contact information, which will be utilized later on in the application process once we get further on and you've performed your interview, completed your interview. You can also submit letters. That is entirely optional. If you choose to submit letters, we are only taking up to 2 letters of recommendation. Last section is a completely optional section, which is demographics. This helps us understand who as a whole we are reaching, and it helps us understand how we might need to adjust the program to best support everyone. We want to make sure that no one feels like you are not welcome because of your access needs or your gender identity. So this is purely an internal form for us. We use this in reporting out our final goals, but beyond that, it is not for us to be sharing your diagnosis. As long as you have a disability, that's all that matters to us. It doesn't matter to us what your disability is. I hope I made that clear, because I know it's a little jumbled. Lastly, I want to go through the application timeline. So the applications close on October 20th at 5 p.m. Eastern. I want to make sure that everyone understands that 5 p.m. Eastern is 4 p.m. Central and so forth. So make sure you know what time it closes in your time zone. Once it's closed, unfortunately. Once they start, as soon as the applications are closed, we start going into review with our staff and we look through all of the applications. Once we are finished reviewing the applications, we will send out interview invitations in mid to end of November. Once you have signed up for your interview, that will be with myself as well as other AAPD staff and a member of our Alumni Network. The interviews will run November through December, and decisions will be made once the interviews are completed, and those will be sent out in early January 2022. Yeah. So though that is everything, I do want to turn it over to our alumni panel, and I will have them introduce themselves shortly. We'll be joined by Adam Weber, who interned for Majority Leader Nancy Pelosi, Jaelyn Evans, who interned for National Council on Disability, and Fermina Lopez, who interned for the Association for People Supporting Employment First. While we get everyone situated and turned over to the panel, please feel free to share your questions in the chat or in our Q&A function. If you're interested and would prefer to unmute yourself, please tell us in the chat and we will make room for you to be able to do that. So I'm going to turn off screen sharing and turn on our panelists' videos. And I'm going to make sure I unmute everyone.
Hello.
Hi, Adam. We can hear you.
Hello.
I think we can hear you.
Hello.
And our interpreter is still on the screen.
Hello.
So I want to make sure that we get the time to ask lots of questions. So I'm going to turn it over to our alumni to introduce themselves really quickly. We're going to go alphabetically because that's how you're organized on my screen right now. So we're going to start with Adam, then we're going to go to Fermina, and lastly, Jaelyn.
Okay, well, hello. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon from the West Coast. As Sophie said, I'm Adam Weber. I was part of the class of 2018. Wow, that seems like this yesterday, but also a while ago. So 3 years ago. And also, as was referenced a minute ago by Sophie, I had the incredible pleasure of interning in the office of then Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi's office, now for Speaker Pelosi's office. And a little bit about myself. So I've been a disabled rights advocate here in California for the last several years. And I interned, like I said, in 2018. What I'm doing now is I'm still an advocate here in California. I also do speaking engagements. Like in a few weeks, I'm going to been asked to speak at a medical school. And I'll be doing awareness slash sensitivity training presentations. So I'm still staying active in the disabled community as far as being able to advocate. I also help to represent individual disabled people as clients, have clients throughout the country. I've also been, since we'll probably get into this a little bit later in the presentation. So since AAPD, I've been able to also return to the Hill and do some similar positions that I did with Speaker Pelosi's office. And I have a number of opportunities, or a few opportunities lined up hopefully after the pandemic allows us to travel more. I do have some pre-existing conditions. So right now I'm doing things remotely, but I hope to start being able to travel more when the situation lends itself to me being able to travel. So did I kind of hit all the points that I couldn't see the prompt, Sophie, so I guess I kind of addressed what the introduction?
You did great, Adam. You did great.
Okay, thank you so much.
Fermina?
Hi everyone, my name is Femina and I am 22 years old and I was the 2021 class of AAPD and my internship was with AAPC, American Association of People with Disabilities. And I want to give like a visual description of me. I am wearing a kind of purplish brown short long sleeve, wearing a glittery and sparkly black silver you know, tie, I think it is, a little sweater with it. Then I'm wearing glasses, it's pink, and I'm wearing brown lipstick, and I'm wearing a black headset, and my hair is kind of blonde with black on top with some Halloween decorations behind me. Do I need to say anything else, Sophie?
Unless you want to share more about your internship, but we'll get into those details later on.
Okay.
Jaelyn?
Hi, everyone. My name is Jaelyn. I was also part of the 2021 class of interns. I'm currently a senior at Randolph College studying political science and Chinese studies. And as Sophie mentioned, I interned this past summer with the National Council on Disability. For a visual description, I'm an African-American woman. My hair is in two big puffs. I have two twists framing my face. I'm wearing silver hoops and a gray core zip. And I'm in a all white dorm room with some decorations here and there.
Thank you all so much. We will get to attendees' questions shortly, but I do want to get us just started with one question, which is, sorry, I accidentally scrolled. Can you share a bit more about the kinds of tasks you performed in your internship, and what was it like having your internship take place either remotely if you did a remote internship or in person if you did an in-person internship? Adam, would you like to start?
Yes, and I apologize. I have a machine that reads things to me because I'm visually impaired, and I also have a physical disability as well. So I'm also wheelchair bound, and I forgot to do the description of my appearance, so I apologize. So I am Caucasian. I have Caucasian male. I have glasses, and in the background there's some pictures of Yosemite National Park. So like wildlife pictures of Yosemite National Park here in California, and I'm wearing a blue shirt. So I think the question that we're on is about the individual tasks that we did, like some of the responsibilities we had, correct, Sophie, for our internship? Okay, so
yes.
okay, so I interned, like we mentioned before, on Capitol Hill. So you know, as you'll find, as I'm sure Sophie and some of the other alum would testify to, so there is usually, especially on Capitol Hill, there's a general set of responsibilities. Some offices kind of will add or specify a little bit more of what they're wanting, but usually, so like I interned in now Speaker Pelosi's office. So some offices on the Hill will require their interns to do answer phones. In Speaker Pelosi's office, or now Speaker Pelosi's office, because she's a national leader, there's such a large volume of calls. They have two full-time people who their entire position would be to handle her phone. So what we did was mostly I was asked to go to hearings and to observe or to listen and to write reports that eventually went to my direct supervisor, and then on occasion directly to the leader herself. And so it would really vary between, one day I remember I had 4 different hearings that I was asked to attend. One dealt with national defense, one dealt with healthcare, one dealt with Veterans Affairs, and the other dealt with it was National Dog Lovers Week, and so I was asked to sit in on animal rights event. So it was kind of all over the board. The other thing sometimes that we did was answer mail. We would go through and once again, it would all depend on a lot of times. I can speak from my experience. The folks that I worked directly with in the office, they were always very mindful to make things accessible to me. So for instance, I'm a wheelchair user. And I have some physical impairment, so like with mail, or with when I have been asked to do assignments, things like that, when I like on the computer, it would always be modified for me. So like I was able to work with the office there on the Hill, and they have a office of accessibility. So they were able to give me a headset where I was able to type all of verbally type all of my all of the summaries that I would do, reports that I would do to the leader. And so that's basically what I did. I basically did reports on, so basically it would just be like a highlight, like the main points of what the hearing was about, or we were also would go to events, or, like I was there during the anniversary of ADA. So I did a summary for the leader about the history of ADA and kind of a lot of the issues in the disabled community to kind of help prepare her for her speech. So it just, her speech at the event, at the anniversary event rally that she was attending that week. So it just kind of varied, but it was just, at least for her office, it was more policy oriented and kind of report oriented. It does vary, like I said, with office, because I had another internship about a year later where it was, we did answer phones, we did do some other tasks, but that I was not asked to do in the leader's office. But that's basically, especially on Capitol Hill, a lot of what the interns do is assist the staff, the senior staff, of being able to kind of get to more events because they're so busy, they're not able to attend anything, especially like with Speaker Pelosi. She's literally invited, and her staff are invited to attend, 80 to over 100 different events or functions a week. And so the interns kind of help them cover more ground. So that's kind of what I did. I hope that helps everyone to have kind of a rough understanding, but that's pretty much what I helped. And that was those few things they asked us to do kept us busy. Because like I said, there's always a lot going on Capitol Hill. So, okay. I think I kind of summarized most of the things I was asked to do.
Yeah, you did great, Adam. Thank you.
Okay.
Fermina, how about you answer next?
Okay, I'm going to try a little of things what I did with my internship. They kind of gave me like different projects to do. So they kind of like made a big email and then listed out for me, because that was one of my accommodations I needed for my disability. And that I needed to see a list of things to do so I could check them off. So they gave me a lot of things to do. Well, the minute time that I had, they made sure to keep me busy. I got a chance to help prep for the CBSD Hill. I think that's the same thing what the I think it's the Capitol Hill. I think that's what it's called. I had to prep for the 14C, so I had to do a lot of things with my team, with APSI, with the staff, planning the webinar calls, making sure that we have this, the drafts, and making phone sheets so people can read it, email drafts, and phone drafts so we can send that out to the people who are talking to the representative. I also got a chance to work with Erica, with one of the ladies at APSI to help prepare me to do webinars. I got a chance to do my own webinar about my PS journey in high school and how that led me towards where I am today. And I got a chance to turn my webinar into a broadcast with APSI. I got a chance to see the behind the scenes of that. I also did some conference planning. I came at the end of the APSI's conference, but they did allow me to go and see it, and I got to see how they worked during the conference. So that's what I did with APSI. Another thing I did with APSI, man, I did so much. I'm trying to think of things that I try not to leave everything out. But I think that was it. I basically did a lot with like doing my own webinar because I had to do the PowerPoint. I had to do a lot of with the CBD. I got a chance to go to it and talk to a representative, and that just helped me from today. Yeah, was that it, or do you want me to talk more?
That was great. Can you just say one or two things about what it's like doing it remote?
Oh, yes. See, I forgot. That was a part of the question. Yes, I liked how it was remote because I got to contact people from different states. If it was in person, I probably would only have people from Washington, D.C. I actually got connected with people from New York, from people in other states, and they helped me gain those long relationships from across the country, and I still have good relationship with some of them. So that was really cool that I got to see that piece online. I think a lot of people want it to be open, but there's a positive on both ends. If you're in person, you can get those relationships, but it's great to have a great relationship with people across the country.
Great, thank you. Jaelyn, do you want to share your thoughts?
Sure. So like I mentioned, I interned with the National Council on Disability, NCD. So for the first half of the summer, a lot of the assignments I got were kind of just thrown at me in the course of a regular week. So I would just be sitting by my email, waiting to hear from someone, and I get an assignment. So the things I did with that, I read a lot of the memos that NCD wrote about things from paratransit to disaster relief and the FAIR Act. And that was really interesting for me because prior to this internship, I actually didn't know a lot about disability justice and history and what it is that the NCD specifically was doing. So I really got a great introduction into the world of disability justice and rights through that. And then about halfway through the summer, I actually got to sit down with the chair of NCD, Andres Gallegos, and he gave me 3 major assignments, which were inclusive fashion, inclusive fitness, and inclusive funding. So I then got to schedule out the rest of my time, and we created deadlines together. And I went through and I drafted a memo on each of these big 3 points. So what I liked about the remote aspect of the internship is that I was kind of free to work in whatever spurts that I would like, because I have ADHD, so my motivation comes and goes at will. But it was really great being able to work remotely because aside from the weekly meetings I had with my team, I could, if during the workday I just was having an awful mental health day, I could stop and I could pick it back up at like 7 p.m. And that's not necessarily something you can do in person. So I felt like being online was actually really helpful, being a person with a disability.
Great, thank you all for those questions. I am gonna jump over to the Q&A to answer a few, hopefully quick questions.
Hey, Sophie.
Yes.
Hey, could I just cover, I'm sorry that
Yeah,
once again,
absolutely.
like I
Go
said,
ahead.
my screen reader's a little behind on the prompt. I did go over it before, but could I just add like just a quick minute on
Yeah.
kind of how I was in person? So that kind of differs from the other two panelists. So could I just kind of expand on that a little bit? Is that all right?
Absolutely. Go right ahead.
Okay, so okay, now I think we have the picture again. What I enjoyed about my in-person assignment, and keep in mind that this was about 2.5 years ago, almost 3 years ago. So obviously it was before COVID, and it was before some of the obviously the well-publicized security issues that have happened in Washington on the Hill, especially. But in 2018, and again, I returned in 2019, and still have contacts that were on the Hill until the beginning of the pandemic, that were from the disabled community as well. What I enjoyed about working on in person, especially on the Hill, is that because it is literally the capital, it is the center of the country. A lot of groups will come to you. A lot of these experiences come to you because that's where the leaders of our country are. And so what I enjoyed was like the events that I mentioned earlier. It was such a variety of things, and that the leader's office was organizing for me. So it was a real pleasure to be able to see like a lot of the people that you see on television, a lot of the most notable political figures, we're all there, we're all assembled. There were a number of celebrities that we saw. There were a number of almost every organization you could think of. Obviously, it's a little different now because of the pandemic and because of security, but I hear that hopefully by the time that you all, for those of you who are able to and choose to intern in person, hopefully a lot of that atmosphere will be returning to somewhat, a similar situation where there'll be a lot of more in-person, happenings there. But that's really what I enjoyed, was that there were so many experiences that were happening there at once, both on the House side and the Senate side. And even when I worked on the House side, Speaker Pelosi would also send me to the Senate side. So just because you're assigned to the Senate doesn't mean you're not going to see the House, or the other way around. You were able to kind of see all of the levels of government. You're right across the street from the Supreme Court. You're also about a mile away from the White House. And so it's, I think when you're in person, the benefit is that because of the human experience, there's still, at times it can be easier to get contacts when you meet someone in person, especially on Capitol Hill. They still operate with a lot of in-person interactions. The other thing is the ambassador aspect of, because there are not traditionally a lot of people with disabilities who worked on the Hill, being able to have that interaction is also, I think, very, very vital as well. And obviously, I understand not everyone's able to travel. Like, I'm not able to travel now because of their disability or health related issues. But if that is an option for all of you, I hope you consider it, because there were many people that came up to me throughout the course of the internship that had never, different groups, different offices, that really, said they appreciated having someone from AAPD's background, because being able to, it's one thing to hear about issues from a community, but if you haven't experienced it, and you haven't met anyone from that background, for a lot of the people on the Hill, they said it was very important to be able to interact with someone that came from a disabled community. And some people had never really been able to have that everyday interaction. So that was, you know, that was a incredible experience to kind of feel like you're contributing. So you're interning and you're getting skills, obviously, as the intern. You're you know, trying to soak up a lot of experiences, but also when you're in person, you also have the ambassador aspect as well, that, you know, at least from my experience, I kind of feel like I'm also giving back to the experience of diversity, where they're also being able to learn more about the disabled experience from their intern that happens to be a person with disability. Sorry, I hope I didn't go too long.
All good. Thank you for answering that question. I'm gonna go back about 45 minutes and clarify my image description, because Adam reminded me of that when he was speaking. I'm a white woman with shoulder length curly hair. I'm wearing glasses. I have a purple scarf and a gray sweater on. And I'm going to address some of the many questions that have come in already, hopefully go through them a bit quickly. When does the internship start? We do not have set dates quite yet. We have a few more details that we're working out. Generally, it starts around Memorial Day and finishes in early August, usually the first or second week. Do we know what the placement possibilities are for this year, specific organizations, et cetera? We have some partners that have expressed they want to be partners again. We have some partners who this will be their first time partnering. And you can learn all about that in our organization, partner placement organization, not pamphlet, guide overview. And that is on our website. And we can share that with you all at the end. How about PhD students? Yes, we do accept PhD students. And if you already have an associate's degree as been asked, you can still participate as long as you have graduated within the last 5 years. How long should a resume be? Is 1 to 3 pages okay? Generally, you want your resume to be under 1 page unless you have a lot to share, in which case sometimes a second page is acceptable. Generally, you do not want to go beyond 2 pages. What if I have never done an internship before or not volunteered? Would that hurt my chances at getting accepted? I can't speak completely to your application, but just think about the experiences you've had this far in your life and what transferable skills you might have from that. So whether that be a part-time job or some other, maybe you were in an organization in college where you were a member of their executive leadership. So if you're like the vice president of your disability club, then that's a great thing to include. Sorry, I am struggling a little bit with my reading. Are there hybrid roles available that blend in person with remote? So our intention when we, once we have recruited our interns, is when we work on placement, we start to talk about accommodations. So if you're an individual who maybe needs a flexible schedule or something like that, we will work with placement sites to try and establish what accommodations you might need. So while it will definitely depend on what your interest is internship-wise, there are definitely some options that we will have to do a hybrid option. Someone asked about Alumni Network engagement. We have professional development workshops. We do social happy hours on Zoom. We do a Slack channel for connection, and there's a lot going on with our Alumni Network. We have a whole separate staff member who runs our Alumni Network, and the Summer Internship Program has been around for 20 years. So there are a lot of alumni. I'm trying to see what other questions. How many people are normally accepted in the program? We are expecting to accept between 20 and 25 interns. Can the interviews be via text-based communication if our disabilities complicate talking? Yes, we can accommodate that. We will also provide extended time for interviews if necessary. So if you're an individual who uses different variations of communication that might take more time, or perhaps it just takes you longer to talk, we'll make sure that you have the time to answer the questions to their fullest, to your liking. Is it okay to email your references? Yes, you can email letters of reference to internships@aapd.com with the applicant's name in the subject line. Alternatively, if you are specifically asking, because I'm not sure what this question means, if you're asking, can we, when we reach out to your references, email them? Yes, we're happy to email them, overcalling them before we contact them. We'll reach out to you to negotiate that a little bit more. Where do you live for the 10 weeks? Or do you have to live in DC to do this in person? You do not. We will provide, as well as a stipend, we will provide housing for all in-person internships. And for anyone who's remote, we provide a technology stipend. So we will cover travel to and from Washington, DC. Your housing will be in a suite style housing. So you will have roommates, which will be other people in the internship program. And then you will also get a stipend, which will be given to you in 3 parts, beginning of the internship, midway, and the end. And then I saw that Constance was looking, Constance Addie Ray wanted to be unmuted to ask your questions. I'm going to let you do that now. I think I have done it.
Thank you for that. So this may be a little bit of an odd question and you may or may not be able to answer it, but long story short, I've got a unique situation. I am a college student, but I'm what's called a returning college student, meaning that I had to take several years off from college starting in 2014, and I just re-entered this year in August. And I am also already employed, as in self-employed. I own my own business. Has your organization ever considered accepting interns like that?
Yeah, it is very important to us because disability is a community that you may join at any point in your life. It is really important to us that we're not just catering to individuals who meet the so-called average college student expectations. So we are very open to non-traditional students. And as long as you can meet the expectations of working the full-time hours that are set by your internship, which those hours also are set between you and your intern supervisor. So if you think, oh, can I start at 8 a.m. instead of 9 a.m., they're willing to work with you on that as well. But as long as you can meet the expectations, we are open to applicants who come from a non-traditional education background. I want to make sure that we get some chance to hear a little bit more from our alumni, and that will also give me the chance to read all the questions that are coming in. So I'm going to ask another question for them, which is, what background or experiences did you bring to your cohort community? And let's go the opposite order. So let's start with Jaelyn.
Okay. So my answer is probably going to be a little bit unique because, as I mentioned, I really didn't have much of a background in disability justice or knowledge of disability history whatsoever. But as I mentioned, I am a political science major, so I've always been interested in policy and activism and things of that nature. I also, in high school and in college, held and am holding a number of leadership positions. So I have a lot of experience with that, with organizing things, putting things together, and just also a general passion for learning and wanting to know more about my community and the disability community. So,
yeah. Fermina, if you'd like to go next.
Yes, what was the question? Please remind me.
Yeah, absolutely. The question is, what background or experience did you bring to your cohort community?
I actually brought to the community is that I am a part of so many different programs with people with disabilities. And before I joined AAPD, I was a part of some organizations that was nonprofit, like the Empower Tennessee and Nashville, Tennessee. I helped them a lot with planning events for people with disabilities, talking to people who needed help in the community, like finding housing and finding a job, finding type of schools. I also was a youth leader for one of the programs they do over the summer, and I help share my story as an advocate about things that I had to advocate for myself. So I had to tell my stories. And so that kind of led me bring that into AAPD. I got a chance to do that with AAPD and doing that now. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, that was great. Adam, would you like to answer it now?
Yes, and this is actually, I think, a good segue into the last question a minute ago. So I really related to what the panel or what the question was kind of making reference to about if you, like you were talking about, Sophia, if you don't come from the quote unquote, preconceived notion or, some of the stereotypical backgrounds of being a student. So I was a bit older when I started college because I have multiple sclerosis. I also was born with cerebral palsy, and the multiple sclerosis, it happened to me where it made me wheelchair bound pretty rapidly. And so I had a lot of medical issues and challenges for a few years. And so it made it where I had to delay college. And so anyone who's listening who doesn't feel like, they have the quote stereotypical background, it's okay. AAPD is for you as well. And especially because as people with disabilities, a lot of us come from situations where just to be able to go to college was kind of a process in itself, right? So it was a challenge to be able, like for me, to be able to get my health to the point where I was able to attend college. And so for me, what I brought was, I guess that's part of it. I brought the background that, so I started at community college here in California. I eventually was able to become student body president of my community college. I was told that I was the first person with disabilities or who identified, especially a wheelchair user, to be elected to that position. I believe that year I was the only person in the country that came from that background to be a student body president of a university or college who was a wheelchair user, to my knowledge. And I also was able to springboard into transfer to a four-year university. I was able to be a leader and co-founder of a couple of different on-campus clubs. Was also a leader and had some political organizations that I was able to help find. And so that was kind of my background. Like I said, I've always been, since I came down, especially with my physical disability, I have worked as a special ed liaison to, I live about an hour and a half away from Sacramento here in California. So I'm in between the Bay Area and Sacramento, which is the capital of California. And so I was able to organize meetings between the disabled community and political leaders. So that's kind of the background I brought to AAPD. Of course, AAPD helped to expand that background once I completed the program. I did also want to speak to the fact that that's another thing with the internship is if you are in person, the relationship building between you and the other interns, especially where we're all living in close proximity, it was actually an incredible experience. There were, some people who had not really had the opportunity to be around a lot of self-identifying people with disabilities. There were some that came from places that were kind of more diverse in that respect. And to this day, a lot of the people that I lived in the building with are still some of my closest friends. And so, since we were talking about the internship earlier, I guess we were kind of focusing on the work aspect, but that's the other layer for people who are in person is you are going to be living in DC, and you'll get a chance to also interact with a lot of people with disabilities. And that will also, whatever background, I just want to say this, whatever background you bring in to the program, AAPD will only help to enhance that background, enhance your experiences and your skills. So like I said, there really are, you can think of almost every background in the world. AAPD has had or has people who have participated in their programs from those backgrounds. So it's very, very diverse. And so whatever your background is, I'm sure you can add to the team if you're selected.
Thanks, Adam, for that feedback. We are at 5 o'clock. That hour went very quickly. So thank you all to our panelists for joining. We really appreciate hearing your perspective. For anyone who did not get your question answered, feel free to email those to us and we will answer them as soon as we can. And we have taken down some of these questions and we'll answer them on our social media sites in the next week or so. But for now, thank you all for joining us and good luck with your applications. We're excited to read them. Thanks, Adam, Jaelyn, Fermina as well.